As we approach the end of the year, everyone wants to know, will the economy pick up in 2012? Will we be better off next year than we were this year? And some people questioned my next guest when he predicted the big meltdown on the financial markets, but you know what? He was right on. Joining me now, the author of The Great Crash Ahead, Strategies for a World Turned Upside Down, Harry Dent. And Harry, you know, we talked on the radio program. I told you I didn't like the title. That kind of gives it away. But I mean, you called the roaring, 2000s. You went back to the 1990s. You were right. You were right about the meltdown on the market. And now you're saying that 2012 doesn't look very pretty to you.
Yeah, first of all, we look at demographics. The baby boomers hit their kind of peak in spending as a generation in late 2007. They're in a plateau phase through 2011. They actually go into their decline phase as they're saving for retirement from 2012 on. We've had, the Fed stimulus kind of stopped in June of 2011. So there's been this pause, and it kind of tends to hit 6 to 9 months later. So we're at the end of kind of QE2 affecting our economy in the fourth quarter and maybe the early first quarter next year. Then we think the economy slows. We think Europe's about to blow up. The Germans are saying we're not going to back these countries unless they go into stronger austerity. And austerity means a recession in Europe as well. And then finally, we see banks getting more and more desperate. They're going to have to start dumping their giant backlog of foreclosures. And guess what? Real estate home prices just went below mid-2009 prices for the first time here recently. That is astounding given the lowest mortgage rates in modern history and the greatest stimulus program. We said this stimulus would fail. Baby boomers, the Fed's going to be fighting baby boomers aging and $42 trillion in private debt. We think it's probably going to unravel early next year, and you're going to see the next wave of the great crash ahead. It already started in early May. We think we saw the first downturn. We're in this Santa Claus bounce, which we expected. And I think by early next year, people should watch out. I think you could see another crash build.
All right. For people that know you, they know how, that followed you like I have, they know how you go about this process. For people that haven't, this isn't you just sitting around going, I have an idea. I think things will get worse. I mean, you use metrics, you use measurement, you use demographics a lot. And so what your point has been all the way along is that you cannot stimulate. It's not anything about Bernanke or Obama or anybody else. You can't stimulate, no matter who you are, this economy right now, right?
Yeah, 92 million baby boomers are at the point where they want to save for retirement, pay down debt. The last thing they want to buy is a house or a bigger house. Their kids have left the nest. They don't need to spend money. They need to save. So, yeah, you're fighting 92 million baby boomers. Same thing happened in the 1970s and the 1930s when a generation peaks in its spending after 20, 25, 27-year boom. You're going to see a slowdown that's going to last for 10 to 12 years until the next generation comes along. We literally can predict the economy almost 50 years in advance with a simple 46-year lag on the birth index, and that birth index lag peaked in 2007 and points down into 2020 to 23. So you're right. The Fed cannot stimulate the economy. They're only running up more and more debt, making things worse. The second thing we study in history, like Ken Rogoff, once you get major debt and asset bubbles, like in the Roaring 20s or the 80s in Japan, those debt bubbles are going to unravel, they're going to delever, and you can't fight that either. You can slow it down, but you only do it by adding more debt, as Japan has done. Now, Japan has the fastest aging society in the world, a 20-year downturn, and they're still not coming out of it because they never let their debt delever.
Yeah, and then I think a lot of people that are watching this can understand that if you were, for example, a school administrator, you check the births today because you know that in 5 years those little children are going to be showing up and they need classrooms and teachers. So that's what you do, is it not? I mean, you just go through, but this peak spending period, it's 46, 47 is where people...
It's age 46 is the peak, the average family. There's a plateau into 50 while the kids are kind of getting out of high school or college into the workforce, and then it declines. Spending declines dramatically from age 50 until death. The baby boomers are heading to that kind of 50-plus stage from 2012 on. Our economy is going to weaken no matter what the government does.
You know what people say? They go, it's different this time, which I always worry when people say it's different this time. You're not talking about just once or twice. You've studied generations that go back a long time. And basically what you're saying is that you and I are behaving like our fathers did at our ages and every age period along, and our mothers and so forth and so on.
Yeah, the only difference is now we peak a little later, and I'm sure our kids will peak in spending. They'll get married a little later, have their kids a little later. But yes, we peak at 46. The last generation, Bob Hope generation, peaked at age 44. That's the only difference. And again, housing peaks even before that. We saw this housing peak back in 2005, 2006, because housing peaks 4 to 5 years before the broad economy. So all of these things, what people do from cradle to grave is predictable, and economists totally ignore demographics.
Yeah, we like to think we're individuals, but we do have human patterns to our behavior. Harry Dent, great reading, The Great Crash Ahead. I mean, you want to know what he's got on his mind. That's the book. Harry, thank you. Always good to see you. Thanks so much.